When I moved into that old crumbling apartment building, I didn't plan on staying long. The top floor apartment was cheap, and I was only in the city for a few months. The neighbors were quiet, the building a little run down, but that was fine with me. Except for one thing, the door at the end of the hallway. It was always locked, but not like the other doors. There was something unsettling about it, like it had been abandoned for years. I didn't think much of it at first. Old buildings always have forgotten rooms, right? But that changed the first night. Just as I was drifting off to sleep, I heard it. A scratching noise, slow, deliberate, coming from behind that locked door. The next day, I asked my neighbor about the door. She was an older woman, always sitting in front of her TV when I passed by. "Do you know who lives behind the door at the end of the hall?" She barely looked up from her crossword, then said in a low voice, "Don't ask questions you don't want answers to." That response sent a chill down my spine, but I shrugged it off. That night, I heard the scratching again, louder this time, like something or someone was trying to get out. I pressed my ear to the wall next to the door, and I could swear I heard something else. A whisper. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone. It wasn't human. Over the next few nights, the scratching got worse. It seemed to get louder each night, more frantic, more desperate. I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the sound creeping into my mind. One night, I decided to confront whatever it was. I grabbed my flashlight and quietly made my way to the door. The scratching stopped. The hallway was eerily quiet. I stood there, holding my breath, listening. Then, from the other side of the door, I heard it. A laugh. Low, raspy, and wrong. I stepped back, my heart racing. I was about to turn and run back to my apartment when I heard footsteps, slow, deliberate footsteps, walking away from the door. But no one was there. I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to know what was behind that door. The next night, I waited until the building was silent. I crept down the hallway, flashlight in hand, and turned the doorknob. To my surprise, it wasn't locked. The door creaked open slowly, revealing a dark, musty room. There was nothing inside but an old bed and a rickety chair. The walls were covered in deep scratches, like something had been clawing to get out for years. The air smelled damp, like something rotting. But the worst part was the cold. It wasn't just the kind of cold you feel from a draft. It was like the room itself was frozen in time, untouched for decades. I stepped further in and my flashlight flickered. That's when I saw it. Footprints. Fresh footprints in the dust, leading toward me. I froze, the beam from my flashlight trembling in my hand. The footprints looked recent, but the room had clearly been abandoned for years. I turned to leave, but the door slammed shut behind me. I spun around, heart pounding, trying to pry it open. That's when I felt it, a presence, watching me from the corner of the room. My flashlight flickered again, and in the dim light I saw it. A shadow, hunched and twisted, lurking in the far corner. It didn't move, it just stared. I could feel its eyes on me, even though I couldn't make out a face. Then it spoke. Its voice was barely a whisper, like dry leaves scraping across the floor. "You shouldn't have opened the door." The air around me seemed to close in, colder, suffocating. I stumbled backward, desperate to get away, but the door wouldn't budge. I don't know how I did it, but somehow I managed to break the door open. I stumbled into the hallway, gasping for air, the door slamming shut behind me. I ran back to my apartment, slamming my own door shut, my heart still pounding in my chest. I tried to sleep that night, but I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I could see it, the figure, watching me from the shadows. The next morning, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. Scratch marks on my apartment walls. I wasn't safe. Whatever I had let out of that room, it had followed me. And every night since, I hear the scratching. But now, it's coming from inside my walls.